Some memories never fade with time. Instead, they grow deeper. This story is one of those. A few years ago, in the final days of December, I traveled to Harbin, a city so cold it feels like it could freeze the blood in your veins. Snow had covered everything in a white blanket. The air was filled with a strange stillness, the kind that only comes with extreme cold, when even the earth forgets how to breathe. I had gone there as a tourist. The city's Russian-style buildings, its old bridges, its frozen rivers. Everything looked cinematic, almost unreal. But somewhere deep inside me, there was another place I wanted to see. A place most people are afraid to visit. That place was called Unit 731. I had first read about it in an old research report. It said, Unit 731, where human science lost its soul. I remember that day vividly. The wind was sharp and relentless. I got out of the taxi at the museum gate. From the outside, it didn't look special, just an old building, with a simple sign that read, Unit 731 Museum. As soon as I stepped inside, the air felt heavier. The light was dim. Old posters hung on the walls, and there was a strange smell. Not quite dust, not quite decay. Something in between. A staff member handed me a ticket and said only one thing. Don't stay here too long. Her face was expressionless. Her eyes looked straight into mine, as if she knew everything, but didn't want to say a word. I walked deeper inside. The displays showed surgical knives, steel tables, and old photographs. One photo showed Japanese soldiers wearing masks, and in front of them, a man was tied to a table, as if part of some horrible experiment. My hands went cold. Every photo, every document felt like a silent scream. Then I stopped in front of an old iron door. A small sign beside it read, Underground Cell Restricted Area. A guide was standing nearby. She looked at me and said softly, Down there are the cells where prisoners were kept. You may go alone if you wish. There was something strange in the way she said it, as if she didn't want me to go, but still wanted to see what I would feel if I did. I turned on my flashlight and started walking down. The stairs were old and damp. Each step echoed with a creak. The air grew colder, heavier. When I reached the bottom, it felt like the air itself had changed. The cold wasn't just physical anymore. It was inside my mind. The tunnel was narrow, its walls wet with moisture. Water dripped from somewhere above. I could hear my own breathing. The beam of my flashlight flickered weakly, as if struggling to survive the darkness. Then I thought I heard something behind me. I turned around, nothing. But in that silence, I could hear faint footsteps echoing. 1, 2, 3, and then they stopped. I aimed the flashlight in that direction, still nothing. I told myself, maybe it's just my own echo. But deep down, a strange fear was building. I moved forward. At the end of the tunnel was a small door. Written on it were the words, Vivisection Room. I thought it might just be another display. But as I got closer to the door, a cold breath brushed past my ear. I froze. The voice was faint, soft, but alive. Ahmed. In Chinese, it means mother. My hand almost dropped the flashlight. The voice stopped, but the air around me changed, as if someone was standing right beside me. I turned around, no one. Only the sound of air moving, and the faint vibration of the tunnel walls. Then I felt it. A cold touch on my shoulder. A hand freezing like ice. I ran. Up the stairs. Faster and faster. With every step it felt like someone was following me. But whenever I turned around, there was only darkness. When I reached the main floor, I told the guide what had happened. She stayed silent for a moment, then said softly, "Many people hear things down there. Some things never leave." Then she walked away. I just stood there, and behind me, the darkness of that tunnel seemed to breathe. That day, I never saw the sunlight of Harbin again. Only snow kept falling, and in my mind, one voice kept echoing, "Ahmed." That night, I couldn't sleep. The hotel room felt colder than it should. Outside the window, Harbin was buried in snow. Streetlights cast a dim, golden haze over the frozen ground. And in that haze, I kept hearing it again. "Ahmed." I tried to convince myself. It must have been my imagination, the wind in the tunnel just an echo. But deep inside, something kept whispering. No, that voice was real. In the morning, I decided I would go back to the museum. My chest was tight with fear, but curiosity was stronger. I had to know what that was. When I arrived, the air was sharper, heavier. Like the whole city had frozen still. At the gate stood the same staff member as before. She looked at me and said only one thing. "You came back." I nodded. She didn't ask anything else, just motioned for me to go in. Inside, it was the same quiet as yesterday. Only today, it felt like the air itself was denser. And somewhere far off, there was a faint metallic smell. I walked back to the same stairway. But this time, a new sign had been placed in front. "Restricted area, entry forbidden." I asked the guide. "Yesterday I was allowed in. Why is it closed today?" She replied softly, "A visitor fell ill yesterday. We decided to close the area for now." I said, "Let me just take one quick look. I won't touch anything." She hesitated for a moment, then said quietly, "Only 5 minutes, don't go alone." We went down the stairs together. The steps felt wetter this time, as if someone had just poured water all over them. The air below was colder, heavier. I turned on my new, stronger flashlight. The tunnel looked the same, but the smell was different. Something old, something alive, something rotting. There were new pipes and sensors along the walls, probably for restoration. But the guide said, none of these are actually working. As we moved forward, I noticed an old speaker fixed to the wall. The guide explained, it was part of the wartime communication system. Soldiers used to receive orders through it. Jokingly, I said, wouldn't it be strange if it still worked? She replied, it hasn't worked since 1945. And then a faint static noise came from the speaker. We both froze. A moment later, a voice, soft and trembling, whispered, "Ma." The guide's face went pale. She said, "Let's go back." But I didn't move. Something caught my eye. At the far end of the tunnel, someone was standing there, wearing a white coat and a surgical mask. Just for a few seconds and then gone. I shined my torch, nothing, just empty corridor. The guide said, "I'll wait upstairs, please come back soon." She turned and left. I was alone now. The air was thick and silent. The flashlight beam moved across the damp wall. And then I saw something in the corner. A small dusty file. I picked it up. The cover read, Subject 12, Temperature Experiment. Inside were pages written in Japanese, and a single black and white photo glued to the page. It showed a man frozen solid, his eyes wide open, his scream stuck halfway. Beneath it was a note, alive until the 4th hour. I closed the photo, and suddenly heard something move behind me, like metal scraping. KHRR, KHRR. I turned around, nothing there. Just an old iron door at the side of the wall. Cold air was seeping out from under it. I thought maybe it was some ventilation duct. But then, a faint voice came from inside. Soft, trembling human. Taskiti. Help me. My feet froze. The voice wasn't recorded. It wasn't an echo. It was alive. I didn't know what to do. I leaned closer, shining my flashlight through the crack. Only darkness inside. But something moved, a shadow, slow and human-like. And then, right behind me, someone exhaled right next to my ear. I turned, nobody. Only the cold air swirling around me. And a single drop of frozen mist, suspended in front of my eyes. I ran up the stairs as fast as I could. But when I reached the top, the guide wasn't there. Only her coat, lying neatly on a chair. But droplets of water were still falling from it. And when I touched them, they were as cold as ice. I stepped outside, gasping for air. For a second, I told myself it was all in my head. A trick of fear. But then I looked at my hand and saw tiny bits of ice stuck to my fingers. I tried to brush them off. They weren't ice. They were blood frozen by the cold. I turned around instinctively. No one was there. But from somewhere deep inside the museum, I've heard it again. Atazaki. That voice hasn't left my mind since. Was it a ghost? Or does that place still remember? The screams of the people who died there. I'll never know. But after that day, the cold of Harbin never felt the same again. Because now, every time it snows, I feel like something beneath the ice is still alive. The next day in Harbin was even colder. Last night hadn't let me sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those frozen walls of the tunnel again. And that voice, Taz-K-T, it had buried itself deep inside my mind. I decided to go back there. This time, curiosity was stronger than fear. There was something down there. Something that wasn't just a story. I did a bit of online research. I found an old forum post written by a local saying that there was another section under Unit 731's basement. One that was sealed with cement after Japan's surrender in 1945. No official record ever mentioned it. But the post said, if you go near the tunnel at night, you can hear voices from that sealed section. And sometimes a faint light flickers from inside. I realized maybe that's the part I saw. That iron door. Maybe that was the unopened section. That afternoon, I went back to the museum. There was no security guard this time. Only the sound of wind and snow. Inside, all the lights were off. I switched on my torch. Everything looked the same. Old photographs, glass jars, and that eerie silence that eats into your soul. But today, I noticed another corridor. A sign said, "Restoration under process." I slowly walked toward it. Plastic sheets hung from the ceiling, and old tools were scattered on the floor. I lifted one corner of the plastic and found another staircase leading down. I went down. The air wasn't just cold anymore, it felt thin, like there was less oxygen. Every breath felt heavy. The walls were old, still covered with Japanese writing, some with numbers etched beside them. In one corner, I noticed an old control panel, rusted buttons and a single switch. Out of curiosity, I flipped it on. A faint light flickered, and a small room ahead lit up. Inside the room were old glass containers. Something inside them, but not clearly visible. I pointed my torch at one of them, and what I saw froze my blood. Inside one container was half of a human hand, frozen solid. The fingernails were still intact. In another jar, there was a small child's doll, but its face looked like it was made from human skin. I stepped back. The air grew heavier. Then I noticed a small metallic box on the floor, labeled real storage. I opened it. Inside was an old film reel, labeled in Japanese. Experiment 82, Cold Exposure Sequence. I decided I had to watch it. In the corner of the room was an old projector. I wasn't sure if it would even work, but the moment I pressed the switch, it came to life. A black and white image appeared on the wall. It showed a laboratory, steel tables, masked soldiers, and a man tied to a chair. Next to him, a thermometer and a ticking clock. The camera zoomed in on his face. His lips were moving, as if he was saying something. Then subtitles appeared. "Mother, please, it's cold." I froze. It felt like the same voice I'd heard in the tunnel, "Amma." On screen, a soldier poured ice water over the man's hand. His face twisted in silent agony. The film had no sound. But then, around the third minute, the sound system turned on by itself, and the same voice echoed again. "Amma." I tried to switch off the projector, but the buttons didn't respond. The reel kept spinning. The screen changed. The camera now moved through a dark room, filled with glass containers, and in the middle, a shadow moved. That shadow held something. A scalpel. The camera shook violently, as if the cameraman was running away. Then the screen flashed white, and suddenly, a face appeared right in front of the lens. Half-burned, disfigured, its lips whispering, "Ahmed." I slammed the switch off, and the projector stopped. Darkness swallowed the room. Only a sound remained. Drip, 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 water falling. But it wasn't water. Something was dripping onto my hand. And when I raised the torch, it was red. Blood. I thought I was hallucinating. But as I climbed the stairs, I heard footsteps behind me, one after another, perfectly in sync. I turned back. A figure in a white coat appeared for a brief moment, then dissolved into the dark. I ran upstairs. The reception desk was empty. The woman wasn't there. Only a small note lay on the table. "Don't go back. The room remembers who opens it." I picked up the note, and just then my phone screen lit up. A notification popped up. "New Bluetooth device connected. Unit 731 audio." I stared at the phone. The music app opened automatically, and without me pressing play, an audio recording began. In the background, the same tunnel sounds played. And then a child's faint voice whispered, "Amma, it's cold, please." I turned the phone off, but the sound didn't stop. It kept echoing inside my ears. I ran out of the museum. Snow was still falling, but that night, even though Harbin's temperature was degrees C, it felt like the air was burning. I looked up at the sky, and through the white fog, I thought I saw a face, the same one from the film reel, its lips still moving. Ahmed. That night, I couldn't sleep in Harbin. The hotel room heater was on full, yet the air still felt cold, as if something had followed me back, something that had come inside with me. I kept checking my phone again and again. The Bluetooth device was now disconnected, but one file remained, 731 record WAV. I tried to delete it, but every time the message appeared, "File cannot be deleted." It was 3 a.m. I put on my headphones and played the file. At first there was static, then a faint breath, and the words that had stopped being a dream and turned into a wound. "Ahmed." Then another voice followed, a woman quietly crying. "They never left." I thought I was hallucinating. Then the heater suddenly turned off. The room went dark. Only a faint light came through the balcony window. In that reflection, I saw a figure standing behind me. The same silhouette I had seen in the museum. A man in a white coat, burn marks on his face, eyes empty of light. I thought it was a nightmare. I closed my eyes. But when I opened them again, he was closer, and a low whisper came. "Why did you open the room?" I fell off the chair. My phone dropped to the floor, and from its speaker, the recording began playing again. But this time clearly. Ambient sounds of a lab, footsteps, and a child's voice saying, "Mother, they are coming." I didn't know what to do. I grabbed my bag and ran out of the hotel. Outside, it was still snowing. The streets of Harbin completely empty. I went straight to the railway station. The ticket counter was closed, but an old guard sat nearby. I said, "I need a ticket to Beijing, now." He looked into my eyes and said, "You went to the Unit 731 museum, didn't you?" I froze. He nodded slowly. "People shouldn't go there alone," he said. "Their pain still lingers in the air. It's not just bodies buried there, it's memories too." It felt like everyone in this city already knew. That place still demanded something. An acknowledgement, a prayer, a memory. When the train arrived, I boarded. Snow was falling outside the window. I closed my eyes for a moment. But when I opened them again, I saw something in the reflection. A small hand resting on my shoulder, as if a child was sitting behind me. I thought it was my imagination. But the reflection was smiling, and the lips moved once again. "Amma, it's cold." The train jolted with a sharp brake. I looked out the window, no one outside. Only a small handprint on the glass. From the inside, still fresh. That's when I realized they were not trapped there anymore. They follow those who dare to open their story. Months later, I uploaded that audio file to an online archive, so people would know and remember. I named it The Unheard Voice of Harbin. But something strange began happening. Each time someone downloaded the file, an extra folder appeared on their computer, Room 731. Inside, there was a single audio clip. A cold breath and a whisper. "Ahmed." Some reported hearing that sound late at night, even when their computers were turned off. I live somewhere else now. But sometimes when it rains, I hear faint drops in the corner of my room. Drip, drip, drip. In a small shadow like that of a child. I ignore it. But deep down I know. Some doors once opened can never be closed again. And if you ever visit Harbin and think of going to the Unit 731 museum, remember, it isn't just a museum. It's a living memory. A wound that humanity gave itself. And the voice that echoes through the tunnel isn't just the child. It belongs to all those still waiting for justice. Some things stay even when they're gone. If this story chilled you, like, share, and subscribe so the next voice can find you too.